What's up YouTube? Moses Designer here doing another Unreal Engine 4 blueprint tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to prototype an exploding barrel, like so. Pretty neat. So I'm going to show you how to prototype this blueprint. So let's begin. So I have the first person template up and running, and as with every blueprint I'm going to go to blueprints, new empty class, actor, and under blueprint I'm going to, since I already have one, I'm going to rename it and call it exploding barrel test. Okay, and now I have my blueprint editor. I'm going to go to add component. I'm going to go to cylinder, and I'm going to scale it in the X value here to 0.75, the Y value to 0.75, and the Z to 1.2. Okay, compile, save. Let's move this to the side, and I have my content browser here. Just going to go to blueprints. Since I already have one, I'm not going to place it, but I'm going to place the exploding barrel test into the world so we can see what happens as we work in the blueprint editor. Save. So there's my barrel. Doesn't do anything fancy. So I'm going to come back to the blueprint editor, and the next thing I'm going to do is go back to add component and scroll down to capsule collision, and we're going to call this guy collision. And before we do that, go to cylinder and right click, rename to explosive barrel, just so we have our things named correctly. Now I'm going to click back on the collision, and I'm going to scale it up so it kind of fits around my barrel. That should be good enough. Compile, save. Now we're going to go to the event graph, get rid of this, this, and this. So the way we want this barrel to work is that when we hit it, it will react to the hit, and once it reacts to the hit, it will do a particle effect of fire, and after a certain amount of delay, it will explode and disappear. So very basic prototype of an exploding barrel. So the first thing we want to do is create a variable. We're going to come down to variables, add, and remember in the other tutorials when you that I mentioned that when you add a variable it goes to Boolean. So to change that, we'll just come to the right side over here. We'll change the name to barrel underscore health, and we'll change this to a float. Then what we're going to do is right click and type event begin play. So when we start this blueprint, we're going to select our barrel health, and we're going to set it. Again, in this tutorial, blueprint works in sets and gets. So setting is how would you say, providing the default value. So we're setting the default value of the barrel health when we start this blueprint. So we're setting the health to 100. Then I want to select my barrel. I'm going to search for on hit. Collision, sorry, I don't need that. I need to select my collision. And then I'm going to search for hit. event hit. I believe that is the correct thing I'm looking for. I need to go back to my other blueprint. On component hit. So go back here, collision component so you want to, on your collision, on component hit. So just to test it that it actually works, we'll just type the word print. So if a hit gets hit, it's going to say the word hello. Compile, save, minimize that, play. And it's hard to see, but in the top left corner of my screen you can see the word hello. So the blueprint is working. So on a hit, it's doing something. So I'm going to come back to my blueprint editor and delete that. And we're going to do a little bit of blueprint math. So I'm going to select my barrel health, drag it, I'm going to do get. So I'm going to get the value. The value we're getting is 100. Drag off a pin and type float dash. So float minus float. I'm going to subtract this float by 25. And then when I do that, I'm going to set my barrel health. So what this function is doing here is on hit, we're going to set the barrel health. What are we setting it to? Minus 25. For each hit, it's going to go down 25 from the initial value of 100. Now we need to compare. We need to do I'm going to get the barrel health again. I'm going to do float and then less than or equal to. It was less than or equal to, let's say 25, just to keep things in equal distributions. 100, 75, 50, 25, 0. We're going to use those values. So if the barrel health is less than or equal to 25, drag off a pin from the red boolean branch, and we're going to connect this set to the branch. So on component hit, so basically event begin play, set the health to 100. On the collision component, when we hit it, we're setting the health to a value of 25 less for each hit. Then as we do that, we're going to check a condition. What is a condition? Is the health less than or equal to 25? If it is, then we're going to do something else. What we're going to do? Let's trigger a particle effect. So I'm going to go to add component. I'm going to add particle system. I'm going to call this fire. And I go back to my viewport, and with my particle selected, I'm going to go to the right side template, drag through here and select P fire, and there it's going. And we can scale this down a bit, let's say 0.75, 0.75. Now, one thing you can notice is when I placed it in my blueprint editor, the fire is actually on right now. So with it selected, I can scroll down on the right side and uncheck auto activate. So right now it will not be on automatically. So now I'm going to go back to my event graph, select my fire, drag it, pull off a pin, and search the word activate. Set active. Or actually, I think you can just type activate. It should show up. Activate. There we go. So if the condition is true that the health is less than or equal to 25, the fire should turn on. So let's see what happens. Compile, save, play. I'll hit it. So it took damage. Just to go back and check that it's actually working, we can bring the blueprint editor to this screen, minimize it, and what we want to do is right click on this and say watch this value. So let's see what that, make sure our math is working. It is, but let's just double check. So right now it is highlighted watching this value at 100. I hit it once, it just went to 75. So the function worked. Minus 25 per hit. Minus 25 per hit. Minus 25. And it matched the condition. 25 is less than or equal to 25. Therefore the condition is true to turn on the fire. Make sense? If not, hit me up in the comments below and I'll explain it again. Or you can rewind the video. Now, I can turn this off. I don't want you to stop watching this value because I know my function works. Now, after a certain amount of time, I want to cause an explosion. So I'll pull off a pin, type in the word delay. Let's say 3 seconds. And then I'm going to go back to my viewport, add component, add particle system, and this time I'm going to search for P explosion. And similar to the fire, I don't want it to activate on load, so I'm going to go to turn off auto activate for this one as well. And just to make things more exciting, I will scale this up to 3 in all directions. So a big explosion. Now I will also rename it so I can keep track of it in my scripting. Call this explosion. Bring it into the editor. Pull off a pin. Type in the word activate again. And let's see what happens now. So after taking damage, after being hit, and equaling a health of 25 or less, it should catch on fire, and 3 seconds later it should explode. It's on fire, and it exploded, but it didn't disappear, and it's still on fire. So we still have a few more steps left to do. So once we've caused the activation of the explosion, I can bring back my fire, pull off a pin, do set visibility, so now that will turn it to false, and then I can select my barrel and do set visibility as well. Just doing things in sequence. And notice I did not check this. So with this new visibility checked off, it's actually invisible. And then also for my collision, because I don't want collision on this. Set visibility on the collision cylinder. And just for kicks, I will also pull off a pin from explosive barrel and type in the word collision. And then set collision enabled, set it to no collision, meaning so that once it explodes and disappears, I still can't bonk into it into the world, and while it's placed in the world. And same with my collision capsule that's detecting the hit, because I don't want to hit something that's invisible either. So this pretty much cleans up the whole scene. So let's review what we have so far before we go and test it. So at the start of the blueprint, set the health to 100. On the collision component hit, this collision component, we are setting the health. What are we setting the health to? Minus 25 of the initial health that we got. Then we're doing a check. Is the health less than or equal to 25? If it is, activate the fire, wait 3 seconds, activate the explosion, turn off the fire, hide the barrel, hide the collision, and set the whole thing to no collision so I can walk around without bonking into something invisible once it's gone. So this should work. It's on fire. It exploded and disappeared. And if I walk in that direction, I am not bonking into anything. So it has completely disappeared from the scene, or exploded away. So that's the basic prototype, but let's spice it up just a little bit more. Because it's not an explosive barrel if it's not red. Alright? So let's do a very basic material. I've already made one, but I'll show you how I did it. I'm not a professional with materials. That's something I need to learn myself. But very basic stuff I know how to do. So what you want to do is go to your content browser and starter content materials. And I've already made this material, but what you do is right click and click on new material. When you do that, you'll get the material editor. And what I do to just get a simple red material is on the right side you have all these properties. Just drag a constant 3 vector, double click it, pick the color, and connect it to your base color. So that's kind of pink. I don't need pink, but you get the idea. You can adjust saturation and levels to what you want it. So a very simple material. Since I've already done this, skip this step. No, I do not want to save changes. So I'm going to go to my content browser. I have m_red, M for material. And I'm going to go to my viewport, click on my explosive barrel, and where it says element 0, I'm going to select my red material and click on this arrow. We have a nice red barrel. And it has made its change in the world as well. And it behaves exactly the same. Then we can add one more small bit of detail, is a point light, to add a little bit of color when the fire is active. So back to our blueprint editor, event graph, viewport, add component, point light, and we will make the radius about, let's say, 256. Let's see the intensity about 8,000, and let's pick a nice orange hue. That should be good enough. And go back to our event graph. On event begin play, set the health. We'll take our point light and we'll do set visibility. So we'll turn it off. And then what we're going to do is once the condition is true for our health value, we will activate the point light. Not sorry, activate, but set to visibility. Make it true, clicking that check mark right there. So if it's true, set the light to true, and then activate the whole system as we did. And then once it explodes, we can take our point light one more time and set the visibility back to false, and then the whole system works as normal. So to review what we have, event begin play, set the health to 100, turn off the point light. On collision hit, we are setting the health to a value that is 25 less than the base health of 100 for each hit. And then we're going to check in a branch, is the health less than or equal to 25? If it is, set the point light to true, activate the fire, delay by 3 seconds, activate the explosion, turn off the point light, turn off the fire, hide the barrel, hide the hit collision, set the whole thing to no collision. So let's see what we got. It's lit, and boom. So there you have it, a very simple prototype explosive barrel. Hopefully it's helpful for anything you're working on or to guide you towards some other blueprint, and hopefully it was easy to follow along. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below, and always be sure to like and subscribe for more tutorials, gameplay streams, visual scenes. Again, thanks for all your support, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Cheers.